So, welcome to Storytime with Constantine. I adore this plushie. I had so much fun. By the way, I took Constantine to the day job, and I forgot that I didn't actually introduce people to why I was doing this. So I kept asking people, like, "Do you think anybody will notice if I walked around with my plushie?" And they all thought it was lost my mind. So then I had to go back and explain. This is Constantine from my stories. I'm just not walking around with an emotional support plushie. Which this should not be any problem if we all walk around with an emotional support plushie. Look at his face. I do have a picture. So, by the way, while we're talking about it, for anybody who's been waiting for Constantine newsletters, they're coming back probably next month because I have a picture of Constantine in the car with a seatbelt that is to die for. So, yes, look at this. Oh, yes, we make the face paint. So, welcome to Storytime with Constantine. I'm super excited and giddy. So, this is why you guys getting extra ramblings for the day. Right? I think even adults should approve emotional support plushies. One that looks like this. Hello, we all need an emotional support plushie. So the fun thing about it is this is Constantine's prototype. The goal is to actually have some orders ready. Probably, probably by the end of the year. I'm thinking we should have trying to decide how many we should make. One of the guys at the day job recommended that I should just make specific amounts and number them so they can be very exclusive Constantine products. I was like, that sounds great and sounds like work. So we're going to put some question marks on that. But welcome to Storytime with Constantine because, hey, why not? And Constantine is looking fabulous. So we're going to have him. I do need to have a stand so we can put Constantine somewhere besides me having to hold him. So here we are. Because I normally have no idea what we're going to talk about till the day of. I figure if I plan too much, I'm going to back myself out because I'll think about it. So we're going a little bit different. I also realized I need to give you confessions for the day. So welcome again. This is legit my 9th year as a published author. And it's super crazy because I kept thinking, it's only been 6. It's only been that. No, literally, next year is going to be my 10th anniversary. And I was like, oh, that actually happened. So and the reason it came about, I think I had one of those emotional days when we all have that stress shutdown. Then what is happening in our lives? So I've been doing a lot of analysis. I've been doing a lot of seriously philosophizing, what I want to do, how I want to continue. Where is the next 9 years going to look like? So I know it's a huge celebration. It's been 9 years, but it's also been 9 years of just, I feel like the roller coaster of publishing. I've done everything from rapid releases to anthologies to collections, so you name them. So now it's time to really go in, where do I want to do? Where is the next 9 years going to look like? Because I'm literally looking what is the next decade look like? How does it look like to publish as a woman who passed menopause? And what is postmenopause? Because this year, I can guarantee you and tell you that my pronouns are definitely trying me. I feel like menopause does that to us. So what does it look like? So that's been some of the things that I've been looking, contemplating, and where are we taking this? So emotional support, Constantine is here for it. So as I was looking at my books and I'm like, what exactly do I want to do? Today we're going to do something a little different. So a couple of some of my favorites. So the Texas Sisters Press and the fabulous, CJ is also on Substack. And I think this one came out in 2020. So they did a seasonal anthology. And because I've done lots of I think I did 3 of theirs. This is one of the ones that I got invited to participate. This book is actually still in print. So if you enjoyed, you can still go on Amazon and pick up a copy if you wanted to. So but I did something a little different, primarily because I had this crazy idea that I thought would be hysterical to do. So this short story that I'm going to cover is A Christmas Dream is the one I picked. I can't really, it's obviously 5 years old. So I figure, hey, let's pick up something a little different for our reading for today because it's going to, why not? We're going to go do a little bit reminiscent because let's be honest, this story is 6 years old, as I just realized. And I'm kind of going back, what am I picking? So we're going to have discussions. For some reason, I thought I picked you guys one for St. Peter. we're going to figure this out. So, welcome. I feel like you guys are joining me in reminiscing campaign. Welcome to Is the Season. This is a holiday anthology 2020 from the season. This is presented by the Texas Sisters Press. So I have a short story here called Christmas Dream. So we're going to jump into this one because this is the story time. It felt very story timey that I decided to do. And because it's a little short story, it comes with different parts. So we're going to go jump right in. And hopefully it is Constantine approved. Keep looking at it. I think we can make this happen. So cheers, everyone. By the way, it's 100 degrees in Texas. So if you guys are having your own personal insane summer hell, welcome to it because it's 100 degrees and we're melting. So let's do the thing. The drink for the day is passion fruit with passion fruit liqueur because I need any more motivation to not look like I'm melting. Here we go. Honey, a Christmas dream, part 1. Honey, are you almost ready? Vanessa asked from down the hall. Mom is expecting us at 5. Brad's hands were sweating. He had agreed several weeks ago to attend the dinner, but he couldn't do it. He couldn't face the judging looks of Vanessa's parents. Sitting at the table for hours with her perfect brother made his stomach churn. He couldn't face them, not with his life being such a mess. Brad walked out of the small bathroom in his work clothes. Vanessa blinked several times. But she was unable to speak as Brad walked around her and headed to the sad excuse of the kitchen in their 2-bedroom apartment. The kitchen was barely bigger than a walk-in closet, but this was all they could afford. You're going to dinner wearing your work clothes? Vanessa asked, the words struggling past her lips. I'm not going, Brad answered as he opened the fridge. What? Vanessa followed him to the kitchen, blocking his way out. I got called in, Brad replied. But it's Christmas Eve, Vanessa swallowed, forcing the tears not to come down. You promised you would take the day off and come with me. I can't help it, Brad lied. But he got sick and somebody has to mend the wrecker. You aren't the new guy anymore. Brad tried to walk around her, but Vanessa held her ground. Why are you always the one getting all the calls? We need the money, Brad argued. We can make it without one day of overtime. Vanessa took a step closer. Besides, you know my parents can help. Brad's hands clenched at his sides. Only a few seconds passed before he shouted, I don't need your parents' charity. Vanessa flinched and walked out of the kitchen. Brad hated to hurt her, but his pride couldn't let him ask for help. He had nothing else left besides his pride, and he couldn't lose that too. I'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy dinner. Brad grabbed a Coke and left the apartment. Tears ran down Vanessa's face, ruining her makeup. They used to be so happy, Vanessa told herself. She hated them for not accepting Brad. That was all he ever wanted to do. When the rejection letter came, his world crumbled. And in turn, so did their marriage. I give you a quick update. I have no idea what inspired this story. I usually can tell you what all the things inspired this one. For this collection, I know it had to be based on the season. I will have to also admit it will have somewhat of a happy ending. I hope. I'm pretty sure it does. We're going to cross our fingers together because let's be honest, we need to have a happy ending because it's a Christmas collection. But one of the things is I tend to dabble back and forth between fantasy and just fiction. So I have tendencies of going back and forth. And I love them both. I love the both subjects very much. I do enjoy fantasy a lot more. It is my favorite genre to read as in general as a whole. But I do tend to write short stories are very much just literature, non-magical, non-or fantasy. So this is one of those. Still trying to figure out the inspiration for this. It's coming back. I'm also kind of amazed because Brad happens to be one of my favorite names because my best friend happens to be named Brad. Did not realize the character was named Vanessa. So here we are. Every once in a while, you all join me and you're like, did you really pay attention to these books? It's been a minute. I've written a lot of stories. Every once in a while, we all need a refresher. So here we are. So we're going to continue as I slowly melt to death because it's really hot in this side of my house. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm not sweating here. So let's do this. And hopefully it doesn't have a sad ending. Can I say that? I'll be so disappointed in myself that this collection came with a sad ending. I'm like, please don't Let's not. I'm gonna come. Let's move on before I get all sad myself. Brad drove to the garage to pick up the wrecker. It was a warm Christmas Eve for East Texas. If last year was any indication, it would be a very slow night. Not many fools traveling this evening, just in case he got bored. Brad had two thriller paperbacks to keep him busy during the night. He didn't want to think, but he especially did not want to be on his phone. The last thing he needed to see were more reminders of the amazing family celebrating the holidays. The road was empty, and Brad was so lost in his thought that he didn't see the small dog until he jumped in front of the truck. He veered to the right to avoid the dog, but he couldn't miss the guardrail as he lost control and slammed into it. The impact was so intense that Brad catapulted through the windshield, and he lost all consciousness as his body shattered the glass. Okay, then. This better have a happy ending. I'm just going to put it all out there because I think it's finally coming back what I wrote. So bear with me. We're aiming for a happy ending and some moral lessons and some fun things. Or we're all going to have dark questionings of my sense of humor here and there. So here we go. Part 2. I'm already feeling bad for Brad, so let's see. The sun was shining down on Brad's face when he woke up. He was flat on the ground, but not anywhere familiar. The ground was made up of what looked like gold bricks, and he was wearing a very expensive suit. Closing his eyes, he tried to recall the last thing he remembered. The dog, the crash, the windshield came rushing at him. Running his hand over his face, Brad expected to feel cuts, blood. Instead, he was clean-shaven, with smooth skin. A tall, dark man walked past Brad in similar suit. Brad reached for the man to get his attention, but when that didn't work, he said, "Excuse me, sir?" The man never stopped walking, not even acknowledging Brad with a glance in his direction. Two more men passed on Brad's other side, heading in the same direction. Brad hopped to his feet and hurried to follow the gentleman. They inched down the road in silence, and Brad took in the quiet country scenery. The road gave Brad the sense of Dorothy traveling to Oz. All he needed were some flying monkeys. Nothing moved in the countryside, not even a bird. Brad kept his distance from the men and attempted to look past them. Everben stopped in front of a large entrance and spoke with another man. This one wearing a pinstripe suit with jet black hair. The man leaned against a steel podium. This was either the entrance to a very fancy restaurant or a 1950 mobster nightclub. Regarding of the establishment, a clientele of the place looked exclusive, at least by Brad's standards. Brad made it to the front of the line and waited for the bouncer to look at him. "Brad Stevens, you're early, but welcome," the man told him, glancing at his tablet. "How do you know my name?" Brad asked, trying to peek at the screen. "I know everyone's names," the man replied, placing his tablet on the podium. "Where am I?" Brad asked. "Are you serious?" the man asked him. "Let's see. Road made of brick, road made of gold, pearling gates, a handsome Peter holding the keys. Where do you think you are? Kansas?" "There's no way." Brad backed away from St. Peter. "I'm not dead. I'm no scientist, but I've been dead a long time," St. Peter told Brad. "But in a battle between man versus windshield, the windshield always wins. You really should use those things called seatbelts. They do come in handy in times like this. Anyways, sorry, my boy, you're dead." "That's impossible," Brad murmured. "You remember crashing your truck against the guardrail?" Peter asked, and Brad nodded. "That's a start. It makes you feel better. The dog is fine. Now, where was I?" Peter went back to checking his tablet as Brad proceeded to process the situation. The shock was too much, and Peter's silence was making him edgy. "You have tablets in heaven?" Brad mumbled to the first thing that came to his mind, trying to break the silence. "You expect me to keep everyone's record on a flip chart?" Peter replied, mimicking Brad's high-pitched tone. "What is the point of blessing humanity with incredible ideas if we aren't going to use them? Now, please, be quiet. I need to check my list, and I'll probably need to check it twice." "Who are you, Santa?" Brad interrupted again. "Considering you don't believe in Santa, Or Christmas. Wouldn't make much of a difference if I was the Easter bunny, Peter replied, not looking away from his tablet. Okay, so I have a really sarcastic sense of humor. In case you guys have not noticed in your first joining me in or story time with Constantine. So now that I remember the story that I write, this is probably the very first short story that I wrote about Peter. I have this insane fascination with the saints, especially Saint Peter. I think is fun and exciting. I also imagine him having just enough sass to make you go like, did I really go to heaven? Also, the fact that I have, because I'm giving you all this background, have this question marks and how is the rock of the church in charge of the pearly gates? Like, why is he always there? Like, why can't he get back up? So when I first had this theory about St. Peter, and I'm boiling to death here, one of the things that a reader asked me is like, why does St. Peter sound like a bouncer? And I was like, that's a really good question. I need answers. So when I usually write short stories, especially ones that have a theme, I get to honestly explore that. I get to kind of figure out, like, why is St. Peter's at the pearly gate? And if you had to be at the gate, could you just be a little sarcastic with some attitude, like get your stuff together? So this is kind of my take on really having St. Peter around. What will he say? How do you address the souls? And how much more fun you can have? Because let's be honest, I'm thinking if you're going to be in charge of the door, you might as well have a blast with humanity because you could have had somebody else. Like, why doesn't St. Peter have an intern? So you can tell I have an obsession with interns. So here we are. So this is kind of that conversation. So yes, it is the very first short stories that I wrote about St. Peter's, who I adore. And this one is, I think I have 3 more that are really, really fun. I have 2 more. So I might actually read them to you if you guys enjoy them as much as I do. But this is kind of that backstory of like, I really have a question mark. Why does he have to be at the gates? And most people truly believe, why is my St. Peter's always sound like a bouncer? And a really badass one too. So here we are. Who is going to tell Vanessa? What is she going to do? Brett asked almost to himself. Why do you care? You didn't think twice about leaving her? Leaving your crying wife alone on Christmas Eve? Peter's brutal honesty made Brad squirm. You don't understand, Brad argued. Of course not, Peter replied. I've been dead for almost 2,000 years. What do I know? It wasn't like I committed my life to a cause that will lead to my death. Oh, wait, I did. Shouldn't you be nicer? Brad asked. That is the question of the century. Are you a saint or something like that? Do you want me to be nicer or validate your self-pity? Peter asked in return. I'm a reflection of what you put out to the world. Not really as fun when it's directed back at you, is it? Now about your afterlife. What do you do with? What to do with you? Wait, Brad reached for Peter. Could I see Vanessa one last time? What do I look like? The ghost of Christmas past? Or would it be the future? Peter rubbed his smooth jawline, staring at the sky for an answer. Whatever. We don't have time. Please? Brad will kneel and beg if that will help. Does it really mean that much to you? Peter tapped the podium. She's my world, Brad confessed. You have a strange way of showing it, Peter told him. 5 minutes. That's all I can spare. Peter pulled his slick phone from his pocket and dialed. James, are you busy? Peter rearranged his suit while he listened. Great. Could you watch the gates for me? I'm doing a quick trip down to Earth. I'll be back in 5. Brad started Peter, his mouth wide open. Brad, close your mouth, Peter told him before turning his face to the gates. This one is strange, I tell you. Thanks again, James. This has to be a dream, or maybe a nightmare. Brad paced back and forth in front of the podium. I'm not dead, just hallucinating. This is not real. Peter does not have a cell phone, and I am not dead. Peter returned his phone to his pocket and waited for Brad to stop pacing. Brad turned towards Peter, who waved at him. Are you done? Peter asked. This is not real, Brad told him. Whatever you say, Brad. But time is ticking. Peter pointed at his iWatch. You only have 5 minutes. If you want to see Vanessa, we need to go. This is a horrible nightmare, Brad told himself. I recommend you keep your eyes closed. Peter walked around the podium and grabbed Brad's arm. It will help to keep the nausea down and save my suit. Before Brad could reply, Peter blinked. them out of existence. Here we go. Brad was screaming his lungs out when Peter materialized him in the living room of his in-laws' house. Peter rubbed his ear several times. Are you trying to blow out my eardrums, boy? Peter asked Brad, who was kneeling on the floor dry heaving, and warned you to keep your eyes closed. Are you trying to kill me? Brad asked as he gasped for air. Impossible, Peter replied. You're already dead. It's a blessing they can't see us, because you will have embarrassed yourself with that entrance. Brad looked at his surroundings and stood. They can't see us? Which part of dead are you not getting? Peter asked, but Brad was on the move. Vanessa's voice was coming from the back of the house. Like a hound on a scent, Brad followed their sound. Peter trailed casually behind, stopping to admire the crosses on the wall. These are my kind of people, Peter told Brad. I'm all in for this new cross wall trend. I might need to tell the boss we need a few in heaven. Modern day designs are in right now. Brett left Peter in the hallway to admire the collection as he walked into his mother-in-law's bedroom. Vanessa was in tears. Her mother had her arms around Vanessa and holding her baby girl. Brad stopped moving. Peter, he screamed. What? Peter strolled in the room. What is it? She knows. Brad felt his heart break. She knows what? Peter asked, looking between the scene on the bed and Brad. That I'm dead? Brad struggled to get the words out. Unless the dog had a cell phone and knew how to make calls. I highly doubt it, Peter told him. I'm not sure anybody has found your body yet. Then what's wrong? Brad pointed at his wife. How am I supposed to know? Peter replied. I just walked in. Last time I checked, I left my tablet at the gate. But, Brad kneeled next to Vanessa and tried to touch her, but his hands went right through her. You need to tell him, sweetie, Vanessa's mother told her. She's leaving me? Brad cried. You're dead. So what does it matter? Peter reminded him. So stop talking, listen. Why doesn't the youth ever listen? That last part was more to himself than Brad. Peter roamed the room looking at all the family photos on the wall. This family really likes stuff on the walls, Peter told Brad, who wasn't paying attention to him. I can't, Vanessa answered as she wiped her face. How long do you think you're going to hide it? Her mother asked. Brad looked over at Peter for support, but the saint was busy copying the faces that people were making in the photos. He looked like a deranged fish from Brad's angle. I don't even want to know what you're doing, Brad told Peter. Do people really make those? Do people really think they look skinny making those faces? Peter pointed at the photos. I do have the same questions. I'm starting to do it as I get older, so now I do question, do we just look like fishes? So in case you're wondering, and if somebody's watching and you guys want to jump in here, let me know. But I also seem to be extremely sarcastic when it comes to my non-fantasy writing. So here we are. Bear with me. It's Peter. Why not? My wife is having a breakdown right now, and that's what you care about? Brad hissed at the saint, who still wasn't looking at him. This is your last wish, not mine, Peter said. Pay attention and leave me alone. He's saying Peter. What else? Brad faced Vanessa as her mother dried her tears from her face. Mom, he hates her life, Vanessa told her. He doesn't hate it, her mother replied. Your husband is a good man. He's just going through a hard patch. She defended me? Brad asked Vanessa, but she couldn't hear him. Your mother despises me. Honey, tell him, Vanessa's mother continued. Brad needs to know you're expecting a child. Being a father changes a man. What? Brad dropped to the floor. I'm going to be a father? No, Peter replied. You are going to be a father. And now you're dead. You're not understanding the whole thing? That thing very well. What if he doesn't want to have a baby? Vanessa's tears were dropping on her shaking hands. Honey, you can't worry about that, Mama told her. Your job right now is to take care of yourself and that baby. Have faith in your husband. Oh, God, Fred cried. I can't be dead. But you are, and we're running out of time, Peter informed him. We got places to go. What places? Brad asked, not waiting to move away from Vanessa. You wanted to know if anyone noticed you, Peter told him, extending his hands towards Brad. I did? Brad asked, looking around the room. Do you have to answer all my questions with another questions? A simple yes or no will work just as well. Peter took Brad's hand. Close your eyes. Brad was back on the floor, hacking his lungs away. Peter looked down at him and shook his head. After several long seconds of coughing and forcing air into his lungs, Brad rose from the ground. You don't follow instructions well, Peter told him. Close your eyes. Not very difficult. It's terrifying. Besides, it's not like you give me that much time to prepare. Brad held his chest as he spoke. By the time you told me to close my eyes, you were already moving. Let's work on your timing. I'll think about it, Peter told him, but Brad was sure he would not change. Where are we? And as you guys can tell, I'm officially still burning to death. So, cheers. Let's see. Where are we? I'm going to not melt. Ignore all of that. Let's go. Are you serious? Peter spun around the room. You come here every day. So how is it impossible for you don't recognize the place? Okay. But why are we here? Brad asked, looking around the wrecker's garage. Why don't you ask yourself that instead? Peter pointed at the door. Follow me. Peter headed towards a small office in the back of the garage. The lights were still on, and Brad could see two people still inside. Peter marched straight to the office and walked through the closed door. Brad stood speechless in front of the door. Without waiting for approval, Peter reached through the closed door, and pulled Brad inside. Brad's world shifted as his ghostly body moved through this solid object. Holy shit! Brad screamed. That was scary. You're dead, Brad, Peter said in a monotone voice. How many times do I need to remind you? Now pay attention. We're losing time. The company owner and the night shift manager were sitting inside the small office. The manager was drinking coffee in a large mug while the owner had a beer. What am I going to do when you leave? The owner asked his old friend. We got some good people here, so it'll be a smooth transition, the manager replied. Who do you recommend? The owner took a sip from his beer. Brad is my first choice. If he gets his head out of his ass, the manager told him. The kid is smart, quick on his feet, great with customers. But lately, his attitude is killing him. He's moody, and most people walk on eggshells around him. Do you think he can? The owner asked, looking up at a company roster on the wall. It would be a shame for such a young kid to lose his way so easily in his life. I'll talk to him, the manager said. I will be leaving into the spring. Plenty of time to get him trained and back to his normal self. He's a good kid. Brad ran away from the office. This time, he didn't think twice about going through the closed door. He wanted space between his bosses and himself. Peter followed at a more graceful pace. Isn't that what you wanted to know? Peter asked. Did anyone notice your hard work? Or they notice. They also notice your change in attitude and volatile temper. How can anyone trust you with a promotion if they can't trust you to handle rejection? Brad's head was spinning. He worked long hours for covered vehicles or troubleshooting them on the road. When he wasn't on the road, his manager made sure he could work at the shop to make up the hours. Most of the time, he kept to himself and barely talked to peers. He never imagined people noticed his work ethics or his attitude. In the last couple of months, he avoided greeting the people in the shop, and he only used grunts to communicate. Embarrassment and shame filled his stomach. He had become the guy he despised, an asshole. Are we leaving? Now, close your eyes, Peter told him with exaggerated slowness. You got jokes now? Brad replied, but he made sure he closed his eyes tightly. Ugh. I swear I'm not crying. I'm just looking like I'm melting to death. So, let's continue. I totally don't hate the story. It is kind of sad, but at least Peter makes it fun. So, I'm still melting. Sorry about that. I do look like a hot mess. It is 100 degrees and I'm reading a Christmas story. But at least it's warm in Texas, so you all understand. The last place Brad ever expected to arrive was at his old recruiter station. Sergeant Smith, was sitting at her desk with a stack of files in front of her. Her boss, Sergeant First Class Manser, walked over to her desk. "Why are you still here?" he asked Sergeant Smith. "Just going over the last minute files," she replied, glancing over her shoulder. "Go home," he ordered. "Take your leave. Work will be here when you come back next year." "I know, but—" Sergeant Smith stopped and examined the files. "But what?" Sergeant First Class Manser asked. "I'm worried," Sergeant Smith admitted. "I haven't been able to get a hold of Stevens." "The recruiter that was flagged?" Sergeant First Class Man asked, he peered over her shoulder. "Are we here to mock me?" Brad turned to Peter, almost spitting in his face. Peter slapped him over the head. "For once in your life, stop talking and listen." "Ouch!" Brad whined, rubbing his head. "Oh, please. You're dead. That didn't hurt. Pay attention." "What's the problem?" Sergeant First Class Master continued. "This kid scored amazingly on his exam, and he was great potential." Sergeant Smith told her boss, "I want to request a waiver for his medical condition, but I need him to sign the paperwork. He won't return my calls. It's not his fault he had a childhood condition, but he's better." "What do you want to do?" Manser asked. "I know you have something in mind because I can see it in your face." "I think I'm going to stop at his job," Sergeant Smith replied. "I don't want to get his hopes up, but we should at least exhaust all options." "Go for it." Manser gave her his approval. "When you come back from the holiday breaks, you can do it. Now, go home. You have a family besides us." "Thank you, Sergeant," Sergeant Smith told her boss. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas to you too," he replied. Sergeant Smith made a note on her calendar and wrote, "Visit Stevens." Brad moved away from the sergeant. Peter followed him until he got distracted by the camouflage netting in one of the corners of the station. A small tent was set up underneath the net, and Peter crawled inside to inspect the thing. Sergeant Smith secured the recruiting station, turning off the lights before leaving for the night. Brad stood in the middle of the room in darkness. He blinked several times before realizing he had lost Peter. "Peter," he said. "St. Peter?" "Why are you shouting?" Peter asked from inside the tent. Brad followed the sound of his voice toward the corner. Peter pulled his head out of the tent with a large grin on his face. "This is so cool," Peter announced to Brad. "I need to tell Paul we need a tent in the break area with the whole camouflage net and everything." "Is heaven under aerial surveillance? Is that why you needed camouflage netting?" Brad asked, sitting on the floor in front of Peter. "Yes. We are afraid of getting bombed by a gang of wild pigeons," Peter replied. "Don't get smart with me, boy. Not everyone is paranoid and thinks the world hates them." "Why are you showing all of this to me?" Brad asked, changing the subject. "By the way, kind of giving you a little feedback. It's been over 20 years, so it's been a very long time. So when I first went to my recruiting station, they did have the whole camouflage net in the corner, which I thought was absolutely hysterical because we're in Salem. And it looked so really cool. And I was like, I need to somehow put that in the story. So you're getting a whole flashback of my recruiting, you know, experience, which I thought was amazing. And why not? St. Peter needs a net in the break room. But I did feel like Brad. I'm like, why do you need a net in the break room? Because they can. That's what happens. So here we are. "Because the pieces of the puzzle never make sense when you're looking at them individually," Peter replied. "Did you honestly think your wife could handle giving birth alone while you're away at training? You were so busy feeling sorry for yourself that you missed all the other pieces around you." "I wanted to be somebody and give her a good life," Brad confessed, as tears escaped his eyes. "You were somebody," Peter corrected him. "You were Brad Stevenson, a good man, a dependable man, a loving man. God never asks us to be successful, my friend. He just asks us to be faithful." And now I'm getting emotional, so oh well. I also, by the way, just to give you guys a heads up, did have a priest who told me that once. I was very upset and I was complaining about being successful and I was all into my feelings. And he said, "God never asks us to be successful. Just have faith. That's all he asks." And then I felt like he punched me in the stomach because that was not what I was praying for. He's like, "Come on now." So this is one of those stories for, it is a Christmas story. So let's be honest, it has a Christmas theme. So here's Brad and St. Peter and a little bit wake up call of, hey, What exactly did he ask you to do? And let's see where we're at. Okay. Easy for you to say when you're the rock of the church. Brad made air quotations to Peter. Is that what you think or what you know? Peter asked him, how great was it when I denied my best friend and left him to die alone? How successful was I when I was crucified by the Roman Empire? Even James was stoned to death. Is that success? Ouch, Brad admitted. That sounds painful. Oh, trust me. They were both horrible ways to die. Peter crawled from under the tent. At least yours was instantaneous. Very little suffering. That's a great way to go. Peter brushed the suit off and stood. He looked down at Brad, who was still sitting on the floor. What are you doing? Peter asked. Thinking. Brad told him. Great. How about doing some thinking standing up? Peter mentioned to Brad with his hand to stand up. Our time is up. I'm in charge of karaoke for tonight's party, and I can't be late. Evan's having a party? Brad asked, struggling to get up. Why wouldn't we? Peter adjusted his jacket. It's Jesus' birthday, and he lives in heaven. This is so weird, Brad told him. Hey now, Peter got in Brad's face. Just because you chose to spend Christmas alone instead of with your family does not mean the rest of the world feels the same way. Now, don't judge. Sorry, Brad told him, dropping his head. Now, Peter said. I know. Close my eyes. Brad finished for him while shutting his eyes tight. Well, the boy can learn a new trick after all, Peter told Brad as he grabbed his hands. The pair appeared in front of James at their pearly gates. A few men, a woman, all in expensive suits, stood in front of the gates. James held the tablet next to the men close to him and started at the two. Are you sure you're John? James asked the men. Wait here, Peter ordered Brad. Peter marched to the front of the line next to James. What is going on here? Peter asked, trying to keep his voice low, but failing. What does it look like? James replied as he pointed at the group of them. We have a line. Why do we have a line in heaven? It's not like we're Disney. And that was longer than 5 minutes. And your tablet is broken. Peter grabbed the tablet from James before continuing to swing it in front of the line. With a few clicks on his devices, he was back to calling the first man. My tablet is not broken. Peter corrected him. You were just using the wrong screen. Do we need to have another remedial session on proper gate procedures? Peter handed the first man a manila folder and welcomed him to heaven. He called the next person, a small petite woman, maybe in her 40s. Nobody needs more death by PowerPoint training, James complained. If you stopped running from your post, we wouldn't be having these issues. Are you done complaining? Peter asked his old friend. James stood around thinking for a moment before answering. Yep, all done. Great, Peter told him. Make yourself useful and hand them their welcome package while I finish scanning them in. You're full of demands, James complained one last time as he handed the two newcomers their folders. Brad stood to the side and watched the line. He understood he was dead. That didn't mean he needed to accept it. But Nessa was expecting a child that was bigger than his feelings and dreams. It was a light. It was a person who needed him to step up and make things better. Brad took one long breath and marched over to the other gate after the last person had entered the kingdom of heaven. Are you ready to start the most amazing afterlife? James asked Brad, holding up his packet. Can I get a do-over? Brad asked. Say what? James asked. Brad forced himself to stand as tall as possible. It would be possible for me to go back home and try again. Kid, everyone wants to come to heaven, but nobody wants to die, James announced. You got the hard part done. Everyone dies, Brad, Peter told him. Yes, I know, but Brad looked at the gold breaks on the ground. This can't be the way my family remembers me. Like how? James asked. Dead? That's not what I meant. Brad's hands were shaking, and he took a long breath to calm himself down. I don't want my wife to believe that I don't want our kid. I don't want people to remember me as a moody bastard. I might not be able to fly planes in the military, but I can be a good dad. For the first time in his life, Brad was not ashamed of the tears rolling down his face. He didn't care that the two saints were judging him. In the last year, he had screwed up so much because of his pride. It hadn't served him well. He swallowed what was left of his self-respect, closed his eyes, and prayed in his mind, Father, I'm sorry. I don't deserve forgiveness, but please give me one last chance. As Brad prayed to himself, James and Peter smiled at each other. Peter checked his record again, making small some notes on his tablet. Brad opened his eyes and faced the two men. I'll do whatever it takes. Brad started. And as you guys can see, I do get fairly emotional when I write because I'm like, oh my God, why am I crying? It's a 6-year-old story. Still, here we are. I don't know. I'm like hot and teary. I told you this better had a good ending and we were all going to be mad together at myself. So here we are. I'll do whatever it takes, Brad stated. A beg. I will praise. I will clean toilets. There are toilets in heaven? No toilets needed in heaven, James answered. Kitchen duty? Brad continued. It's heaven, Brad. Peter told him. Nobody here is doing manual labor. But are you willing to spend time in hell to atone for your sins? Brad's face went pale. Even James dropped his jaw and stared at Peter. If I must, Brad raised his right hand. I swear on my family that I will do whatever you order me to. Do you know this is heaven and not the military? James whispered. We don't take recruits or pledges. I'll do whatever you want. Brad dropped himself on the ground, making James and Peter glance around the podium. What are you doing? Peter asked as his gaze fell on Brad. I'm going on strike and refuses to move until I'm giving another chance, Brad announced, closing his eyes. C5? James asked Peter. I'm not sure. I see kids doing that at Walmart. Does he think we're super center? James asked, but checked with his friend. We're heaven, Peter admitted, and they both shrugged in agreement. You're both aware that I can hear you, right? Brad asked both men. Oh, great. We were afraid you had gone mad and deaf. Since you can perfectly hear us, stop wrinkling that suit and get off the gold. I'm not moving unless you're sending me home, Brad said from the ground. You truly don't listen, do you? Peter took a deep breath. What was the first thing I told you when you arrived? I don't know, Brad said, trying to look at the men from the ground. And this is heaven? Close. But no. Peter made a dismissal hand signal. I said that you were early. You're not scheduled to die for a while, Brad. What? Brad asked, giving himself a whiplash as he sat up too fast. What do you mean? You heard me, Peter answered. Then why would you show me all those things and keep telling me I was dead? Brad tried to get up, but he tripped over his own 2 feet. He is clumsy, James whispered. Are you sure he's going to make it to a long life? Peter elbowed James to the side, which made him grunt. Brad glared at the two men. I told you what your subconscious wanted to hear, Peter said. For the past few months, you haven't been living, just existing. You needed to see what you were living behind. Life is not about huge successes. That isn't what makes it worth it. It's about the people you touch, the people you care about, even when you try to push them away. Is it too late? Brad asked. You're early here, Peter said. You still have time to turn this around. Thank you, Brad told him. How do I get back? Give me your hand, Brad commanded. Brad extended his hand, closing his eyes. Peter pulled a pen from his pocket without asking for permission. Peter flipped Brad's hand over and wrote a large P on the inside of his wrist. Brad screamed and pulled his hand back. What was that for? Brad asked from his wrist. As time passes, you won't remember much. But you will always remember not to waste your second chance. Peter put his pen back and his jacket in place and glanced over at James. Do you want to do the honors, brother? It will be my pleasure, James asked, before turning back to Brad. Close your eyes, my son. Brad didn't wait to be told twice. His eyes were tightly shut by the time James blew his breath in his face. The air around Brad became hot, and he was gone. You think he'll change? James asked Peter. He better, because next time, he might not land here. Did you really write a P on his arms? James asked, shook his head. You're just jealous I didn't write a J. Peter stuck his tongue out and his brother in arms a long time from. are you ready for the celebration? I heard our new Texan chef just made himself at home, and we're having briskets. I'm amazed you don't weigh 500 pounds, James told Peter, who was busy putting his tablet away. Food has no calories in heaven here, Peter said as he led his friend away. I'll never gain a pound. The two saints left the pearly gates and headed towards the banquet hall for the Feast of Kings. Part 3. I don't feel so bad. At least Brad wasn't dead. I did have some question marks because, I've done worse things in stories, so I had to question myself. So here we are. The white neon lights were blinding. The strange bleach smell assaulted Brad's senses, and he couldn't figure out his location. He was laying on a hard bed, but he was strapped down. His neck was locked in place by a brace. When his eyes finally adjusted, he saw the needle sticking out of his arm. Nurses and doctors walking around in the emergency area. Brad didn't understand. And he made it to the hospital. But it was the most beautiful sight he ever seen. Oh God, a nurse screamed next to him. Doctor, he's awake. A doctor and another nurse rushed into the room. Brad, can you hear me? The doctor asked slowly. Brad couldn't talk because he had a large tube stuck down his throat, but he nodded as much as the neck brace were allowed. Great, the doctor said with a smile. You're one lucky man. We're going to pull some of these tubes out and check you. Doctor, his family's in the waiting area, said the second nurse. We can only land one at a time, the doctor told her. Understood. The nurse left the room with a smile on her face. Okay, Brad, I need you to relax while I pull this out, the doctor told him, and then tugged the feeding tube out of his mouth. Brad gagged a little, but the sensation quickly passed. The doctor did a full body inspection, asking questions and checking his cognizant functions. When he was satisfied that Brad was stable, the doctor left the room. You are a miracle, the first nurse told Brad as she brushed the hair from his forehead. Brad glanced at his wrist, and there was Peter's pee. It wasn't a dream or a nightmare. He was in a car crash and had been to the Pearly Gates. But it was too late. But was it too late to save his family? Brad closed his eyes and forced on his breathing. He is one lucky man, he heard the doctor say. We almost lost him a couple times. But he's a fighter. Thank you, doctor. Vanessa's sweet voice filled the room, where his eyes wide open and he searched the door for his wife. With bloodshot eyes and trembling hands, Vanessa entered. The tears were running down her cheeks before she even opened her mouth. Baby. Brad forced his sour throat to work. Vanessa was at the bed, kissing Brad's forehead and holding his hand. Oh, honey, she told him. I'm so sorry, baby, Brad said. I'm such an asshole. Please forgive me. I love you, and I can't wait for our baby to be born. Vanessa froze and looked down at her husband. How do you know? St. Peter showed me, Brad tried to explain. Okay, Vanessa looked around the room for a medical professional. It doesn't matter. Brad squeezed her hand tight. I'm not crazy. What matters is that I love you, and I will spend the rest of my life showing it to you. If that's the case, St. Peter can visit us anytime, Vanessa joked. That's not such a good idea, Brad told her. Let's make this a one-time thing. Works for me, Vanessa told him as she kissed his lips. Merry Christmas, my loves. Don't ever scare me like that. Merry Christmas, my angel, Brad replied. I plan never to do it again. So, my friends, that is the end of A Christmas Dream. Is part of the collection is the season and Halloween anthology that came out in 2020 from the fabulous Texas Sisters Press. So you got a little peek of my technically did have managed and it's a lot longer than I was expecting to read because I didn't think I was going to read the whole thing for you guys. But hey, short story, my crazy take of what heaven would look like if you actually had to go in, and a little bit of St. Peter and St. James and their kind of amazing situation and relationship. I do have two more short stories with St. Peter. I think one is Runaway Santa, and I think I have like a Dennis the Menace kind of story, all taking place in heavens at the Pearly Gates. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It is definitely the first time I wrote very specific for a theme. This was all about the holidays and kind of getting the reflection. And then, yes, it is definitely a take on the ghosts of Christmas past or Christmas future, whatever you're looking at it, with a very kind of religious undertone because it was a Christmas collection. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. hopefully you guys had a great time. I know it is definitely not Christmas in July because it's 100 degrees and we're all melting here. But thank you for joining me. You guys have an amazing night. Enjoy. I'll be back next week because I'll be home next week. So we'll do it again and I'll see what I pick. And many kisses and love. Bye, guys. Thank you.